There was a time, though I do not speak of it often, when the sun passed through the sky as it was meant to, when the great tree held the heavens aloft without strain, and the halls of the gods rang with a kind of joy that in hindsight feels almost naive. The Golden Age, we called it, though we did not know then that it was an age at all, because when you are inside the warmth, you rarely consider the cold that waits beyond the door. My sons laughed then, too loudly sometimes, shaking the tables with their boasting, and the dead remained where we laid them. There were shadows, of course, there always are, but we believed in our strength, in the permanence of what we had built. It felt, as most things do to us gods, that we had eternity to enjoy. Even then, I knew we didn't. The end had a name. Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, the fire that would cleanse the world and break the cycle of what we had built. A prophecy older than our bones, a story carved into the roots of the world long before we knew how to listen. I saw the end before the others did. No, I sought it. I hung myself from the branches of Yggdrasil, the great tree that binds all things, not to die, but to know. For 9 nights I gave myself to silence and pain, and from that agony came the runes, truth carved into the fabric of the world. And what they showed me, what they whispered into the marrow of my bones, was that all of it would fall. That Loki, my blood brother, would lead the dead against us. That Fenrir, his wolf son, once cradled by our fire, once fed by our own hands, would break his fetters and swallow me whole. That Thor, my thunder-hearted child, would kill the serpent who holds the seas in its coils, but take its poison into his lungs and fall before he could breathe again. That fire would sweep the roots of the world, and all that we were would burn, and that none of us would survive. Not one god, not one hall, not even memory. I thought perhaps that knowing would help, that if I could see the shape of the end, I might soften it. But knowing is not simply power, it is also weight, and it grows heavier the longer you carry it. The signs came slowly at first, then all at once. The winters lengthened until they no longer ended. The earth hardened. The stars dimmed. People turned on each other with a cruelty that felt ancient and intimate. Even the gods grew still. My ravens, my thoughts and memory, Hugin and Munin, ceased to return. And when the sky remained empty, when the silence stretched longer than it should have, I understood that the hour had come. We tried to stop it. That is the truth I want remembered. We saw what Fenrir might become, and so we bound him, not out of hatred, but fear. He was no longer a pup then, but still young, still playful in the way of wolves who do not yet understand the depth of their own strength. He would press his great head against my side, fall asleep near the hearth, his breath rising in slow clouds against the stone. But the prophecy clung to him like scent on fur, and the others whispered. Tyr, brave and solemn, offered his hand in trust and lost it in the binding. And Fenrir, clever, intuitive, knew what we were doing even as we lied and laughed and promised it was just a game. He looked at me when the final ribbon tightened, the one spun from silence and shadow, and there was something in his gaze that has never left me. Not hatred. Not yet. Just betrayal, quietly settling into the space where love had once been. I told myself it was necessary. I still do, but these days I find I have to say it more than once for it to feel even partly true. Loki stayed long after trust had frayed. He still laughed, still spun stories that made even the stone-hearted gods lean in. He carved wooden animals for Balder, small horses, birds with bright eyes, and left them on windowsills and by the riverbanks where children might find them and smile without knowing who to thank. He was kin. Not by blood, but by something older and more binding. He had never truly belonged, but we let him close enough to hope. That may have been our cruelty, when he gave us sons, strange, monstrous, powerful sons. We feared them, banished them, bound them. And when he asked us, with silence more than words, if he was still one of us, we answered in chains. And yet, when he broke from us, when he led the giants and the dead, he did so not with a roar, but with a silence that echoed louder than any battle cry. I remember the last thing he said to me, quietly, almost to himself, as we stood beneath the fading stars.
Do you think any of it will matter?
I did not answer. I should have. The end did not announce itself with fire or thunder. It came quietly, like the breath before a scream. The sky split. The seas rose. The great serpent Jörmungandr uncoiled and dragged poison across the heavens. From the south came Surtur, the fire giant, wielding the sword of endings. From the depths came Loki, crowned in shadow, his monstrous children behind him, Fenrir leading, silent and certain. And we stood, waiting. Thor was still and bright beside me. Tyr's armor bore the marks of every battle he had survived. Freya, who had once given up his sword for love, carried only his bare hands. We did not speak. There was nothing left to say that had not already been said too late. I met Fenrir on the battlefield. He had grown beyond reckoning. His eyes, those same eyes that had once looked at me from beneath drooping lids beside the hearth, were vast and calm and full of something that looked like sorrow. I raised my spear. He opened his jaws. And when the darkness took me, it felt less like punishment and more like release. What happened after, I do not fully remember. Only fragments. Fire rushing like a tide. The sound of stones splitting. The ache of something far older than flesh breaking apart at the root. But this I know. The tree endured. Scorched and cracked, yes. Stripped of its former glory, but still standing. And beneath its boughs, new, untouched, almost impossibly alive, two figures emerged. A boy and a girl. Humans, the last of them. Their names were Lif and Lifthrasir, though they did not yet know them. In the chaos of the world's ending, they had hidden deep within the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree, shielded by the tree's ancient magic. They were not warriors, not kings, just survivors. And from them, the world would begin again. They had no memory of gods, no need for prayers. They drank from a spring that had never run dry. They laughed. It was not a triumphant sound. It was quiet, startled, the way spring might sound if it had a voice. That is what remains clearest to me now. Not the battle, not the fire, not the weight of all we lost, but the sound of two children laughing in a world where our names no longer matter. I do not know if they will ever speak of us, if they will ever find the ruins of our halls, or wonder at the stones carved with names too old to understand. But perhaps that is not the measure of what we were. Perhaps we were never meant to be remembered. Only to have made the remembering unnecessary.